Yudalad Mishnah Beis. This Mishnah now discusses a Melacha D'Rabbanan, and the Melacha D'Rabbanan is that of making some sort of brine or saltwater concoction. And the problem is that it looks a little bit like ma'abed. It's part of the... it looks similar to tanning the skin of an animal where you apply salt to the skin. The Rambam learns that it's not a problem of ma'abed, but rather it looks a little bit like bishul. He says it can't be ma'abed because there is no prohibition of ma'abed with regard to food items. So therefore, but the Mefarshim seem to learn that it's a problem of ma'abed, and that's why it's listed over here in the Mishnah, because we're dealing with the preparation of hides, the series of tzeidah, and ma'abed is part of that. So says the Mishnah, Ein oisin hilmi b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to make this mixture of hilmi, which is a mixture of salt and water with a bit of oil, this brine on Shabbos. Aval osehu es meha melach, but you are allowed to make a small quantity of mei melach, of salt water, v'tovel behen pita, and you can dip your bread into it, or v'noisin l'teicha tavshil, or you can add it to some sort of cooked food. Now, the Bartanura says as follows: Ein oisin hilmi. What is this hilmi? Mei melach murubim. It's making a large quantity of salt water. Shenoisin l'teich yirakos, that you place, you sort of keep vegetables in it. Shekoif shin oison liskaim, and you're going to preserve the vegetables. So that you mustn't do on Shabbos. You mustn't make a large quantity of this brine on Shabbos. Aval oisin, says the Bartanura, mei melach mu'atin. You are allowed to make a small quantity of salt water, kadei l'tabel bohen pitay, in order for you to dip the bread into it, or l'teicha tavshil. Fine, or to add to cooked food. Says the Mishnah, Omer Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi takes issue with the Tanakama. V'halohu hilmi, bein meruba, bein mu'ut. What difference does it make how big a quantity you make? Says the Bartanura, V'halohu hilmi, bein meruba, bein mu'ut. Koloima, im ha-merubim asurim, if making a large quantity is asa, af ha-mu'atim asurim, even a small quantity should be asa. People will otherwise say that if you do a malacha, large malacha in quantity, then it's asa. But if you do a small malacha, if you do it in a small quantity, then it's going to be mutter. But rather, says Rabbi Yossi, both are going to be asa, because it's sort of, you are doing something similar to ma'abed, and you're preparing the food, that food can go into it and can be preserved for a long time. So Rabbi Yossi has a problem with the quantities. He says it can't be right that you differentiate between large quantities which are asa and small quantities which are musa. The quantities should be irrelevant, it should be asa. However, Rabbi Yossi would agree that there is a way in which you can make it, which is acceptable according to his opinion. Ve'elu hein mei melach mutarin. Continues the Mishnah. This is ve'elu hein mei melach mutarin. Rather, if you like, these are the permissible ways to make this salt water. Noisin shemen betchila. First of all, you put oil in. L'toich hamayim. You add the oil to the water, and only then do you add salt. Oy l'toich hamelach. Or you add the oil to the salt, and then you add the water. But what you mustn't do, says Rabbi Yossi, is add the salt and the water together and then add the oil, because that is a problem of making this hilmi on Shabbos, and whether you make a small quantity or a large quantity, it's a problem. Says the Bartanura, explaining Rabbi Yossi's permissible way of making this mixture, as follows. What you should do is, you should add the oil to the water first, before you add the salt, or you add the oil directly to the salt, before you add the water, because the point is that the oil is going to hold it back, because the salt will not therefore be able to mix well with the water, and it reduces the potency of the salt. Says the Bartanura. You mustn't add the mayim and the melach together, and then the oil, because as soon as you mix the water and the salt together, that looks like you're tanning. The halacha is not like Rabbi Yossi. Rather, the halacha is like the Tanakama, and therefore, to make a large quantity is a problem because that looks like ma'avid, but to make a small quantity is in fact permissible according to the Chachamim. One important point. even according to the Chachamim, even according to the Tana Kama, there are situations where making salt water is prohibited regardless of quantity. For example, if you make salt water with a very, very strong potency, for example, 2 parts salt and 1 part water, even the Tana Kama would agree that that is also in a small quantity. And this has important bearing, for example, on Seder night. On Seder night, if for whatever reason someone forgot to make the salt water, and you needed to now make the salt water, then, since the halacha is like the Tana Kama, it would be acceptable to make the salt water so long as you do not make it so strong, so potent, that it's 2 parts salt and 1 part water. I don't think anyone drinks salt water or uses salt water to that potency, but one has to bear that in mind, and therefore you can make a small quantity for table use rather than large quantities for preservation, so long as you don't have that extreme potency of 2 parts salt and 1 part water. That is the end of Mishnah Base.